You don't expect betrayal to come from someone who knows your coffee order by heart. I still remember the way Anna would hand me that chipped mug every morning, black, no sugar, just the way I liked it, before sitting across from me with her laptop and that morning glow smile that somehow made the spreadsheet seem less sterile. That's what trust looks like, I suppose. Familiarity disguised as love, and love disguised as security. We had a rhythm, Anna and I. She was the numbers, I was the vision. She balanced budgets, I chased clients. Together, we'd built our marketing firm from a cluttered dining room table to an office with glass walls and custom mugs bearing our logo. People said we were the perfect team, modern, ambitious, and sync. I thought so too, right up until the moment I opened a file that wasn't meant for my eyes. It started on a rainy Thursday afternoon. The power flickered in the office, and I offered to update the weekly reports from Anna's desktop while she was at a meeting. She was meticulous with her files, folders within folders, color-coded, time-stamped. But one folder caught my eye, personal. I hovered over it, hesitated, then clicked. Inside were several documents, old resumes, scanned IDs, nothing incriminating. Then I noticed a small chat log saved as a PDF. Thread_BF_Jan February.pdf. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that now. But something about the title, curiosity, they say, is what undoes the innocent. The first few lines were mundane, plans for a dinner party, talk about a client. Then the tone shifted. The messages weren't to me. Anna, he still has no clue. I swear, it's almost too easy. Other, he always was a trusting guy. Per sap. Anna, he trusts me with everything, even the books. You think I should start moving the big numbers now? Other, careful. But yes. Start light. He'll never notice. And then, the kicker. Anna, I've already started. Transferred $15K last week. Labeled it under consulting fees, LOL. The blood in my veins turned ice. I scrolled up, trying to place the messages, hoping absurdly that this was some kind of cruel joke or fictional dialogue. But the timestamps matched. So did the voice. And the recipient? My best friend. Joel. Joel, who once helped me move apartments in the rain. Joel, who toasted at our wedding. Joel, who knew every corner of my business, because he'd helped me land our first major client. I sat back in her chair, the PDF still open, blinking at me like a silent witness. I didn't slam the desk. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. Instead, I clicked Save As, created a backup, and emailed the file to myself. Then I wiped my fingerprints from the mouse. And I smiled. Not because I was fine. Not because it didn't hurt. But because I knew something Anna and Joel didn't. They had just made a fatal mistake. They thought betrayal would break me. They had no idea I was about to become the most dangerous man they'd ever underestimated. If you had asked me a year ago what I thought of Anna, I'd have used words like brilliant, loyal, my anchor. Looking back now, I realize I was never describing her, just the version of her I wanted to believe in. We met at a small business expo downtown. I was there reluctantly, dragging my half-formed startup idea through rows of flashy booths and sales pitches. She was manning the booth for a local accounting firm, her hair in a tight bun, her smile disarming. While other representatives shoved pamphlets into people's hands, she asked me one simple question. How are your margins? I laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. Anna had that rare ability to make numbers sound personal. She took a cursory glance at my business plan and told me where I was bleeding money, all in under 5 minutes. We got coffee that afternoon. By the end of the week, she'd gone freelance and agreed to handle my books. That was the start. She didn't rush in. She earned it, piece by piece. A suggestion here, a favor there. She knew when to listen, when to speak, and more importantly, when to say nothing. That silence? At the time, I thought it was wisdom. Now, I think it was calculation. The first 6 months were transformative. She cut costs, streamlined our tax filings, and even suggested creative ways to market that saved us thousands. Clients started rolling in. We moved into a real office space. She decorated it. She chose the color scheme cool grays and golds, minimalistic but warm. It felt like ours. I asked her out officially over lunch one Thursday. She said yes without hesitation. That was the first time I ignored the voice in my head, the one that asked, "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Mixing business and romance isn't just risky. It's exposure. But she made me feel invincible. Like I wasn't just a guy with a dream, but someone who could actually build something lasting. We got married a year later. She wore a simple white dress and gave a speech at our reception that left everyone in tears. I've never believed in fate, she said, but I believe in timing. In meeting you? That was perfect timing. Everyone clapped. I teared up. What no one saw, not even me, was how she was already laying the groundwork. She kept the financials under her login. Said it was just easier that way. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? She handed me monthly reports. Showed me charts. I signed where she pointed. When I think about it now, I can't believe how easily I let it all happen. She had my passwords. My power of attorney for emergencies, she said. I never thought to question it. She paid the bills, managed payroll, filed our taxes. When I started to lose touch with our finances, she reassured me. You have more important things to worry about, she'd say, kissing my cheek. She was right. I did. I was busy pitching clients, networking, expanding. But she was busy too, just not in ways I understood. One night, about a month before I found the chat file, I remember coming home to find her deep in spreadsheets, her eyes scanning numbers like a hawk. I asked what she was working on. Just reconciling some consultant payments, she said without looking up. I asked if everything was all right. She smiled. Always is. With you around. Now I wonder how many times that smile was hiding a lie. Looking back, it's almost embarrassing how many signs I missed. At first, they were small things, barely worth a second thought. Anna started working later. Not unusual, tax season can get brutal, even for a small firm like ours. But it wasn't just the hours. It was her vibe. She came home distracted, her phone clutched like a lifeline. I'd try to kiss her cheek and she'd flinch, pretending she didn't see me. She stopped asking about my day. Once, I noticed a new perfume. Not expensive, too sweet for her usual taste, and when I asked about it, she said a client gifted it to her as a thank you. I wear it to be polite, she said with a forced laugh. Happy clients tip better. I wanted to believe that. I really did. She began dressing sharper, even on days she worked from home. New blazers. Heels that clicked on our hardwood floors like metronomes. I thought she was just trying to reclaim some spark. We'd both been grinding hard for years. Then there were the calls. She started taking them outside, always clients who needed privacy. I tried to respect that. But sometimes I'd walk into the kitchen and catch the end of a laugh. Not her business laugh, her real one, the one she used back when we still used to binge sitcoms and cuddle on the couch. Once, I heard her say, "No, he's at the office, we're fine." She had her back turned, didn't know I'd walked in. When she saw me, she froze, just for a split second, then turned and asked if I'd pick up groceries. A month before I found the chat log, she went to a conference in Denver. I offered to come along, make it a weekend. She said it was a tight schedule, that I'd be bored. Besides, she said, I need some space. A little breathing room. That stung. But I nodded. We all need her sometimes, right? While she was gone, I noticed a charge on our business card. A high-end hotel, in our own city. 2 days before she left. I called to ask if it was an error. It was for a client dinner, she said casually. We couldn't get a reservation anywhere else. That didn't sit right. Still, I buried it. Like I buried everything that didn't quite add up. I told myself, don't be that guy. The paranoid husband. The one who reads too much into things. We were business partners, not just spouses. I had to trust her. But trust, I've come to learn, is a luxury and one I was paying for blindly. The real crack, the one I couldn't ignore, came when our mutual friend Rachel stopped by unexpectedly. She and Anna had been close, college roommates. In fact, I was at home alone, and Rachel dropped off a book Anna had lent her. We chatted briefly, and she asked if Anna was still working weekends with the consultant. The who? I asked. Rachel frowned. She hasn't told you about him? That guy who's helping with your expansion plan. I forced a smile. Oh, right. Joel. Yeah. She blinked. Joel? No. I thought she meant someone named Adam. That night, I checked Anna's shared calendar. Nothing marked for weekends. No mention of meetings. Just blocked hours labeled personal. My skin prickled. That was when I began to quietly collect the pieces. No confrontation. No accusations. Just evidence. And once I started looking, the puzzle came together far too fast. There's something surreal about investigating your own life like a stranger. After Rachel's visit, I stopped sleeping well. Every night, I'd sit in the living room long after Anna had gone to bed, the glow of my laptop casting shadows across old spreadsheets, bank statements, and archived emails. And what I found confirmed everything I didn't want to believe. The money was bleeding from us, not in hundreds, but thousands. At first, I thought maybe it was poor budgeting. Maybe she made a few mistakes, but the pattern was too precise. She had set up a separate shell account, not in her name, in the name of a consulting firm that didn't actually exist. I found it through a bank transfer buried in a tax return she thought I'd never review. The routing number didn't match any vendor we'd ever used. I traced it to a credit union in another state, then cross-referenced it with vendor invoices. The same name popped up 3 times, straight as consulting. We never hired anyone by that name. The dates matched with weekends she claimed to be at client conferences, and the amounts were surgical, just enough to not raise flags with our accountant. But add them all up, nearly $120,000 over the last 2 years. She was draining our business, quietly, systematically, like termites behind polished wood. And all the while, I was praising her. I was telling friends how lucky I was to have a partner who handled the books so flawlessly. The realization didn't even hurt, not anymore. Something colder had settled in me by then. The kind of stillness a storm leaves behind after it's torn through a town. I didn't cry. I didn't call her out. I did what she'd never expect. I thanked her. That morning, I brought her coffee. Told her I was thinking of stepping back from daily operations. You've got such a handle on the business, I said, smiling. Maybe it's time you stepped up more officially. Take more credit. She looked stunned, then pleased. She thought she was winning. Over the next few weeks, I encouraged her to start rebranding. Told her she should put her name on the website on the invoices. Publicly associate her identity with the business. She even suggested transferring some ownership for legal clarity, she said. I agreed. Of course I did. Meanwhile, I was working with a forensic accountant, one who didn't know Anna, didn't know her loyalty. We quietly audited 5 years of records, uncovered the false vendors, and built a case. Every receipt, every fake invoice, every dollar. I also went to the county office and quietly removed her name from our property titles. Legally, she still had rights. But the trail of transactions made it clear she'd committed business fraud. And if this ever went to court, that would matter. The final piece was the insurance. Our business had a policy that covered malicious financial misconduct. I'd never thought much about it. It was something our old lawyer insisted on. But now, I saw it differently. I filed a confidential inquiry with the provider. Turns out, they'd had other cases. They were very interested. One evening, she came home giddy. Guess who landed us the big pharma contract? She beamed. I played my part, hugged her, celebrated. But in my head, I was already counting down. She thought she was stacking the deck. She didn't know I had the whole playbook. They say keep your friends close and your enemies closer. I kept my wife on a pedestal. After discovering the second ledger, the fake consulting firm, and the financial bleeding she'd orchestrated behind my back, I knew I was at a crossroads. Most men might have erupted, gone to war. But not me. Not yet. Instead, I leaned into the lie. Hard. I started praising Anna more than ever. Publicly. Lavishly. In every meeting, I credited her for the business's success. I told friends she was the brains behind our growth. Couldn't have done any of it without her, I'd say, and smile like the proud husband I pretended to be. She loved it. You could see it in her walk. She stood taller, started wearing bolder colors, taking more solo meetings, signing emails as managing partner, even though we never officially changed the titles. And every time she asked for more responsibility, I gave it. Cheerfully. Behind the scenes, I was gathering records, cross-referencing emails, interviewing ex-clients under the guise of testimonials. I wasn't just building a divorce case. I was preparing to bury her career if she tried to take mine down with her. I also met with a lawyer discreetly. A seasoned one, with sharp eyes and a taste for complex financial fraud. She read the summary of what I'd found and leaned back in her chair. This is better than most fraud cases I've prosecuted, she said. You do realize what you're sitting on, right? I nodded. She's getting ready to leave me. I can feel it. She won't just leave, the lawyer said. She'll try to take everything on the way out. Let her try, I replied. I'll make sure she's carrying debt instead of dividends. Over the next few weeks, I staged what looked like an emotional slow decline. I acted distracted, weighed down, let her believe I was burning out. I stopped checking the accounts publicly, stopped asking about payroll. She grew bolder. She booked a weekend in Napa for stress relief. I encouraged it, told her she deserved it. She didn't know I had the hotel manager on retainer. He sent me the guest list. Joel was on it. I didn't confront her. That wasn't the plan. I sent them a bottle of champagne instead. Anonymous. The note said, "To the stars of the firm, may your secrets age well." The silence from her phone that weekend was deafening. No photos posted. No stories shared. When she came home, she looked anxious. But I welcomed her like nothing had changed. Told her how much the team had missed her. That morale dipped without her fire. She relaxed again. And I tightened the leash a little more. Every spider believes its web is invisible until the dew reveals the threads. Anna had spun hers carefully, arrogantly. She thought she was weaving silk in secret, but what she didn't know was that I'd been watching her construct every strand. Now, it was time to let the light hit. The weeks after Napa passed like a quiet storm. She was cautious, but smug. Her behavior had shifted. She was sweet again. Almost too sweet. Like a fox trying to play pet after tasting blood. I didn't let on that I noticed. I was the doting husband, still too busy to handle the books, still encouraging her to take the lead. Her emails, once neutral and formal, now dripped with command. She was running the show, or so she thought. In truth, every file she touched was being mirrored to a separate cloud I controlled. Every invoice she modified, every name she added to payroll, every digital signature she forged under my name, it was all captured, documented, labeled, categorized. And I was ready. The trap wasn't just legal. It was social, emotional, psychological. I had begun speaking with key clients behind the scenes. Quiet meetings. Candid conversations. I didn't accuse her of anything. I simply asked questions about their recent interactions. A few laughed it off. One asked me straight, "Are you and Anna still partners?" That was the moment I knew I wasn't crazy. Her reach had overextended. She was trying to solidify her hold not just on the business, but on my reputation. So I tightened the net. I set up a meeting with a potential investor. Someone Anna had tried and failed to impress months ago. This time, I went alone. I showed them our numbers, our growth, our challenges. I shared only my vision and subtly hinted at an internal realignment. They were impressed. More importantly, they were interested. I gave them one condition. Any future investment had to be contingent on my sole ownership. They agreed. I then met with our accountant. The real one, not the freelancer Anna had hired to replace her old guy. I showed him everything. The fake consultants. The ghost invoices. The redirection of funds. He didn't even blink. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked. Eventually, I said, "Right now I want her to bury herself." And she was doing exactly that. Anna began whispering to mutual friends, floating the idea that I might be depressed, that I was burnt out. She even mentioned to one of our board advisors that I might be looking to sell, that I needed time away. I smiled when I heard that, because I knew she was preparing to strike. She was laying the groundwork to push me out. So I handed her the hammer. I proposed she attend a prestigious entrepreneurship panel, one we both dreamed of presenting at. I told her she deserved the spotlight. She was thrilled. She accepted. She would be speaking to a room full of our peers, mentors, competitors. And I made sure the panel was recorded, live streamed, in fact, on our company's public page. 2 days before the event, I submitted a whistleblower report to our own legal insurance provider. I detailed suspected embezzlement, falsified documentation, identity misuse. I signed it under my legal capacity as co-owner. They launched an inquiry immediately, quietly, formally. And the moment Anna took the stage, confident, radiant, ready to claim credit for everything we built, a lawyer from the insurer filed a freeze on all our business assets. I watched from the back row. She was halfway through a story about our shared vision when someone approached the moderator and whispered in their ear. A pause. Then confusion. The live stream cut briefly. Murmurs filled the room. Anna looked up, puzzled. Then she saw me, and the color drained from her face. I didn't wave. I didn't smile. I simply stood up, buttoned my jacket, and walked out. The trap had sprung. Everything she had taken from me was now frozen. The accounts, the assets, the reputation she tried to hijack, the business she thought she could claim. I had never raised my voice, never thrown a plate. I simply let her believe she was winning, all the while pulling the floor out from under her. And it worked. The courthouse smelled like dust and cheap coffee, a fitting place for a reckoning. Anna sat across from me, her lawyer whispering rapidly in her ear. She wore her armor well, crisp blazer, perfect posture, lips pressed into a soft smile that screamed control. But her eyes betrayed her. They flicked from the judge to her folder to me. Wide, hesitant, uncertain. She hadn't expected this. Not the audit. Not the asset freeze. not the swift motion for an emergency hearing on grounds of corporate fraud, and certainly not the man sitting across from her, calm as a monk, with an ironclad portfolio of proof in front of him. The judge, a woman in her 60s with eyes that had seen too many messy divorces, spoke slowly, methodically. We are here to evaluate the petition filed by Mr. Harper, co-founder of Harper & Vale Media, requesting a formal injunction on the company's management and assets based on submitted evidence of financial misconduct. Anna's lawyer stood. Your Honor, this is an ambush. My client was not properly notified of the intent to file corporate allegations in what was presumed to be a family court proceeding. The judge looked unimpressed. Your client signed a mutual ownership agreement with operational clauses. That makes this business litigation, not just divorce. And he submitted an official whistleblower complaint. Anna shifted in her seat. I watched her carefully. She tried to maintain her composure, but her fingers clenched around her pen. Then came the evidence. My lawyer, Ms. Ellis, laid it out piece by piece. The ghost invoices, the phantom consulting firm, the matched deposits, a signed check with my forged signature, and emails, so many emails, where Anna authorized payments to herself under aliases. Anna's face began to pale. When the judge asked her to respond, her voice cracked for the first time. There must be a mistake. Those were just internal transfers. Ms. Ellis slid a document forward. This is a contract with Stratus Consulting filed under an EIN linked to a shell account in Colorado, registered in the name of your high school friend, Lydia Keene. Do you deny knowing her? Anna swallowed. Lydia, she let me use her name for a startup. It was nothing. We never did business. And yet your firm paid Stratus over $120,000 in 2 years. Silence. The judge nodded slowly, then turned to me. Mr. Harper, you've requested not only control over the company, but full custody of the family estate and sole parental rights. This is unusual. I nodded. Your Honor, I was not just the primary caretaker of our children, but the one actually running this business in good faith. My wife exploited my trust, used our marriage to cover her embezzlement, and endangered our financial stability. Ms. Ellis added, we are also filing a motion to reverse any ownership she transferred into her name under duress or manipulation. Anna's lawyer tried to object, but the judge held up a hand. I will allow this to proceed, she said. We will review the documents and reconvene for a ruling. But I must say, this is the most meticulously documented case of marital and corporate betrayal I've seen in years. As we left the courtroom, Anna finally looked at me directly. There was no fire left in her eyes, just fatigue and something close to fear. I didn't say a word. She didn't either. And that silence spoke volumes. Part 8, Fallen Queen, Rising King. Anna didn't return home that night, and I didn't wait for her. By the following morning, my inbox was flooded. Clients, friends, even acquaintances had seen the panel footage or heard whispers of what happened in court. The news spread faster than I expected, partly thanks to a blog post from one of the panel attendees, the day a queen fell in real time. It went viral. The blog didn't mention names, but it didn't have to. Our company logo was visible in the background of the now infamous clip, and commenters put the puzzle together fast. The internet had spoken. Sympathy poured in. So did quiet applause from those who had suspected Anna for a long time but never had the proof to speak up. Within 48 hours, 3 clients canceled their contracts with us, citing concerns over ethics. 2 others emailed saying they'd stay, but only under my leadership. One, an old-school real estate investor, wrote, "You did it with dignity. If you're steering the ship now, I'm in." Anna tried to do damage control. She released a statement through her lawyer citing personal misunderstandings and internal miscommunication. It only made things worse. The comments were brutal. Screenshots of the hearings court summary leaked. Her image as a poised professional was cracking. Her daughters from a previous marriage, whom I had helped raise, called me. They asked if it was true. I didn't lie. They cried. Not because I betrayed them, but because their mother had. And still, I remained silent in public. I didn't post. Didn't reply. My lawyer advised it. Let the truth work. So I let it work. We scheduled the next court session, this time to discuss final division of assets and custody arrangements. Anna showed up alone. No press. No entourage. Just her and her attorney. She looked smaller, like the shell of the woman I once knew. I won custody, not because I demanded it, because the judge said I had earned it. My documentation, my consistency, my restraint. They told a story of someone who had held the line long after it should have broken. The house went to me. So did the business. The judge ordered her to repay a portion of the embezzled funds or forfeit all rights to future profits. She chose to forfeit. She had no fight left. When we left the courthouse that day, I saw her hesitate near the exit, as if she wanted to say something. Apologize. Ask for something. But she didn't. And I didn't stop. A week later, I had a quiet dinner with our staff. No speeches. Just food. Laughter. Relief. The storm had passed, and I was still standing. People asked what I planned next. A vacation? A rebrand? Neither, I said. I'm building again. But slower this time. Wiser. They nodded. I started volunteering as a mentor for small business owners. Not to relive the past, but to help others avoid my mistakes. I spoke not just about finance, but about trust, about silence, about the difference between being kind and being weak. One afternoon, I stood in front of a group of young entrepreneurs and said, "The world will tell you to forgive and forget. I say, forgive if you must, but never forget. Forgetting is how it happens again." A few clapped. One man, around my age, just nodded slowly. I saw it in his eyes, he knew. Peace isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself with trumpets or champagne. It slips in quietly, usually when you least expect it. And when you've survived betrayal, manipulation, and emotional warfare, peace doesn't feel like a parade. It feels like exhaling. In the weeks following the final court ruling, I began learning the art of stillness again. Not the forced silence I practiced during the storm, but genuine stillness, the kind that comes from knowing you're finally safe. It started small. Mornings where I didn't wake up to check my phone. Nights where I fell asleep without planning a defense. I took walks, long ones, just to remember how it felt to move forward without looking over my shoulder. The house, once tense with unspoken things, slowly became a home again. I repainted the kitchen, not because it needed it, but because I wanted to change something with my own hands. I replaced the old living room curtains, donated the dining chair she had picked out. Subtle changes, but enough to breathe new air into old rooms. The kids adjusted, too. At first, they were quiet, unsure. They asked questions about Anna. I answered truthfully, gently. I told them people can make mistakes, even big ones. But that didn't mean we stopped loving. It just meant we learn how to protect love better next time. My daughter started leaving drawings on my desk again. My son started calling out, "Dad, watch this," before every trick on his skateboard. We were healing, not perfectly, but honestly. Business-wise, I had braced for fallout, but instead found steadiness. Clients stayed. A few even wrote messages thanking me for how I handled everything. One said, "You showed us what leadership looks like when it matters most." I didn't hire someone to replace Anna. I took over her roles gradually, then hired a team to distribute the load. I didn't want another partner. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I wanted to rebuild with intention this time. The staff responded. Productivity climbed. The office felt lighter. People smiled more, lingered longer after meetings. They were no longer navigating unspoken tensions. They were part of something new. Outside of work, I reconnected with old friends. People I hadn't seen in years. I met a college buddy for lunch. We laughed over cheap burgers and stories that felt like they belonged to someone else. I apologized to a friend I'd ghosted during the marriage. He forgave me, said he was just glad to have me back. I started mentoring. Not formally at first, just coffee chats with small business owners trying to stay afloat. Then speaking engagements followed. Small audiences, quiet rooms. People wanted to hear not just how I survived betrayal, but how I kept my humanity. "You didn't just win," one young man said after a talk. "You walked out with your soul intact. That matters." It did. I wrote a lot. Pages that no one would see. Letters to my kids for future milestones. Thoughts for a future book, maybe. Writing wasn't therapy. It was clarity. It was the mirror that finally told the truth back to me. One entry I wrote read, "She didn't just lie to me. She taught me how to stop lying to myself." And that was the hardest lesson of all. Love, I realized, had become a mask we both wore. In the beginning, it was real. But later, it became survival. Her betrayal ripped the mask off. And oddly, I was grateful. Not for the pain, but for the sight it restored. I learned to be alone without being lonely. To eat dinner at a quiet table and not fill it with distractions. To sit on the porch with tea and not check who was online. I even traveled alone. Short trips. Coastal drives. A cabin in the mountains. I found peace in the mundane. Folding laundry while music played. Reading a newspaper in full for the first time in years. Planting tomatoes that mostly died, but a few stubborn ones clung to life, just like me. Eventually, I found sleep. Deep, uninterrupted sleep. Not haunted by betrayal. Not counting regrets. Just sleep. And then, one morning, I made breakfast. Not the sad scrambled eggs of survival, but real food. French toast with berries. Fresh coffee. I plated it carefully. Sat at the table. Ate slowly. That morning, I realized I hadn't thought about Anna in weeks. And that, more than any court ruling, any financial win, any social validation, was the final victory. Peace after fire. The kind you don't shout about. The kind you savor. There comes a time when you stop asking why and start living with the answers. For months, I had lived with shadows of questions, reliving moments, dissecting decisions. But peace, true peace, came when I stopped looking backward to rewrite history and instead began writing what came next. This story began with ledgers, records, numbers, balance sheets. Appropriate, then, that it ends with one final entry. Not a financial one. A personal one. I stood in the old office that once bore both our names. The new sign read simply, Harper and Company. Clean. Honest. Mine. I watched the sun rise through the same glass walls where she once stood rehearsing lies and I once believed them. I didn't feel bitter. Not anymore. What I felt was ownership, not of a business, but of myself. My decisions. My boundaries. My value. I had lost something in all this. Sure. Trust. Illusions. Years. But I had gained something far more powerful, vision. Not just for the company. For my future. In the months that followed, I created new traditions. Fridays were reserved for hikes with my son. Sundays, my daughter and I cooked badly, but enthusiastically. I built rituals that honored where we were now, not where we came from. And I learned to laugh again. Not politely, not performatively, but from the belly, from the gut. The kind of laugh that tells you you're free. One evening, after a community workshop I facilitated, an attendee came up to me. Middle-aged. Quiet. He just shook my hand and said, "You told my story." Except this time, the man won. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. Because he was right. Not just because I came out ahead in court or business, but because I never let betrayal turn me cruel. Because I stayed human. Because I chose to heal rather than harden. And maybe most importantly, because I made sure my children saw that. Even when a storm hits, you can walk through it with dignity. The final ledger wasn't about assets. It wasn't about revenge. It was about integrity, legacy, growth, and peace. It was about the day I walked into a quiet house, cooked a meal for 2 kids who still believed in me, and realized I believed in me too. That was the last entry. The books are closed, and life is open.